Black Maid hid the truth from the wealthy CEO about their only twin girls. Now he needs his rare blood type. Lillian stopped, studying her daughter's faces. Sometimes she saw ghosts there, features that didn't come from her side of the family. A stubborn set to Maya's jaw that reminded her of someone she tried to forget. Grace's eyes, green-flecked and intelligent, that looked nothing like her own. What would you do if your life depended on someone you betrayed? Hi viewers, kindly tell us where you're watching from and what time it is. Warm welcome to the family. Enjoy the story. The most powerful man in Atlanta had everything money could buy, except the one thing that could save his life, flowing through the veins of daughters he never knew existed. What if your past sins became your only salvation? Have you ever wondered if the people you've wronged hold the key to your survival? Richard Collins owned half of downtown Atlanta. His signature graced billion-dollar deals. Presidents called him for advice. But none of that mattered when he hit the marble floor of his boardroom like a fallen giant. The mahogany table reflected emergency lights as paramedics worked over his unconscious form. His $1,000 suit wrinkled against the cold floor while stock tickers kept scrolling on the wall screens. His empire marched on without him. "Sir, can you hear me?" The paramedic's voice cut through the chaos. Richard's eyes fluttered open, then rolled back. His body convulsed once before going still. Too still. We're losing him. The ambulance ride blurred past in sirens and medical chatter. Richard drifted between consciousness and darkness, seeing flashes of his empty penthouse, his cold bed, his silent phone. No wife, no children, no one waiting for him to come home. At Emory Hospital, Dr. Martinez ran test after test. Each result brought worse news. His blood type is extremely rare, she told the gathered executives. We're talking about maybe 50 people in Georgia who could be compatible donors. Richard's assistant, Patricia, wrung her hands. Money's no object. Find them. It's not about money, Dr. Martinez replied. It's about time. In genetics. The computer search began immediately. Hospital databases, blood bank records, military files, every registered donor in the state. Hours passed. Richard's condition worsened. His kidneys started failing. His heart struggled to pump blood that was slowly poisoning him. Then the computer chimed. Dr. Martinez stared at the screen, her face going pale. 2 perfect matches in Charlotte, North Carolina. Both young women. Both with the surname Carter. The same name as the maid Richard had fired 23 years ago. Patricia leaned over her shoulder. What is it? I need to make some calls, Dr. Martinez whispered. She pulled up Richard's old employee records, buried deep in Collins Industries files. There it was, Lillian Carter. Domestic staff. Termination date. August 15th, 2001. Reason for dismissal. Personal conduct issues. But it was the notation in the margin that made her hands shake. Pregnancy suspected but unconfirmed. 2 daughters. Same rare blood type. Same age that would match the timeline. Richard Collins, the man who destroyed every relationship that got too close, might have destroyed the most important one of all. And now his life depended on the children he never knew existed. Dr. Martinez reached for her phone. Someone would have to travel to Charlotte. Someone would have to find Lillian Carter and ask the impossible. Would she let the daughter she raised in secret save the man who threw her away? What would you do if your life depended on someone you betrayed? Drop your thoughts below, and let's see if mercy runs deeper than revenge. The monitors beeped steadily as Richard slipped deeper into unconsciousness. In Charlotte, North Carolina, 2 young women were getting ready for their morning shifts at the community hospital. They had no idea that 200 miles away, their blood might be the only thing standing between life and death for the father who never knew their names. In a small Charlotte apartment, 2 sisters prepared for another day of service, unaware that 200 miles away, a dying billionaire's blood was crying out for theirs. Maya Carter braided her sister's hair in quick, practiced movements. The pre-dawn light filtered through thin curtains as their grandmother's gospel hymn hummed between them. A melody of resilience passed down through generations of women who survived by loving fiercely. You're going to be late again, Maya warned. securing the braid with a rubber band. Grace smiled at her reflection. Dr. James doesn't mind when I'm helping with the children's ward. Maya rolled her eyes, but her grin gave her away. Grace had been talking about Dr. James for weeks. The way he listened when she spoke. The way he trusted her with difficult cases despite her being just a nursing student. That man's got it bad for you, Maya teased. Stop it. Grace blushed, gathering her textbooks. He's just kind. Kind wasn't a word Maya used often. In her experience, kind men were usually weak men, and weak men couldn't protect the people they loved. She'd spent 23 years protecting Grace. From school bullies who made fun of their secondhand clothes. From boys who thought poor girls were easy targets. From a world that looked at young black women and saw limitations instead of possibilities. Maya was studying to be a nurse, but she worked like she was training for war. Top of her class. Perfect attendance. Volunteer work at 3 different community centers. She refused to give anyone a reason to doubt her worth. Grace was different. Gentle where Maya was fierce. Trusting where Maya was suspicious. She painted watercolors in her spare time and left encouraging notes for patients who couldn't read. She believed in second chances and happy endings. Maya believed in hard work and staying ready for disappointment. Their mother, Lillian, bustled around the kitchen in her hotel uniform. She worked the early shift, cleaning rooms before business travelers woke up. The same job she'd held for 15 years, ever since they'd moved to Charlotte. Y'all eat something before you leave, she called. No time, Alma. Maya grabbed her backpack. Grace has clinical rotation, and I've got that exam. Lillian stopped, studying her daughter's faces. Sometimes she saw ghosts there, features that didn't come from her side of the family. A stubborn set to Maya's jaw that reminded her of someone she'd tried to forget. Grace's eyes, green-flecked and intelligent, that looked nothing like her own. Mama. Grace touched her arm. You okay? Just proud of my girls. Lillian's voice caught slightly. Y'all are going to change the world. The twins kissed her cheek and rushed out, their laughter echoing in the hallway. Lillian poured herself coffee and turned on the morning news. She half listened to traffic reports and weather updates while getting ready for work. Then a name stopped her cold. Atlanta businessman Richard Collins remains in critical condition after collapsing during a board meeting yesterday. The coffee mug slipped from her hands, shattering against the kitchen floor. 23 years of carefully buried memories came flooding back. His hands on her waist. His promises whispered in the dark. The way he looked right through her the morning the rumors started. The shame in his eyes when he handed her the final paycheck and told her to leave town. She'd been 3 months pregnant and too proud to tell him. On the television, Richard's face filled the screen. Older now, with silver at his temples, but still handsome in that dangerous way that had made her forget every lesson her mother taught her about powerful men. The billionaire CEO needs a rare blood transfusion, the reporter continued. Doctors are searching for compatible donors. Lillian's legs gave out. She sank into a kitchen chair, staring at the screen. Have you ever felt like your past was about to collide with your present? Tell us about that moment when everything you'd buried came back to life. Her daughters had his blood type. She'd always wondered about that genetic quirk, so rare the doctors made note of it in their medical files. Now she knew why. The twins looked up questioningly from the hallway, hearing the crash. Everything okay, Mama? Lillian turned off the television with shaking hands. 23 years of secrets, and now his name was back in her life. Just clumsy, she managed. Y'all go on. Don't be late. But as the door closed behind them, she realized her carefully built walls were about to crumble. Richard Collins was dying, and her girls, their girls, might be the only ones who could save him. The question was, should she let him die with his secrets, or risk everything she'd built to give him the one thing he'd never given them? A chance. Private investigator Marcus Webb had tracked down missing heirs before, but never one whose existence could resurrect a man from his deathbed while destroying a family's peace. The rental car felt too clean as Marcus drove through Charlotte's east side. Leather seats and new car smell seemed wrong in neighborhoods where people fought for every dollar. He'd grown up in places like this, before the military, before the college degree, before he started charging rich people to find things they'd lost. Usually, he found missing money or missing spouses. This job was different. Find Lillian Carter. Confirm paternity. Convince her daughters to donate blood to save Richard Collins. Simple on paper. Complicated in every way that mattered. Marcus parked outside the Carter apartment building and studied his notes. Lillian worked at the Marriott downtown. Maya and Grace were nursing students at Central Piedmont Community College. Model citizens. Clean records. No idea their biological father was worth $3 billion. His phone buzzed with a text from Patricia. Any progress? RC's condition deteriorating. Marcus didn't reply. He'd worked for Collins Industries before, tracking down corporate leaks and industrial espionage. Richard was a tough client, but fair. Paid well. Never asked questions about methods. This felt different. Personal in a way that made Marcus uncomfortable. He walked into the diner across from the apartment complex and ordered coffee. The waitress, a woman in her 50s with kind eyes, brought him a mug and a smile. "You new around here?" "Just passing through." Marcus showed her a photo of Lillian. "I'm looking for an old friend. Lillian Carter. You know her?" The waitress's expression cooled. "Depends on who's asking. Someone who owes her money." It wasn't entirely a lie. "She works over at the Marriott. Good woman. Raising girls right." The waitress studied his face. "You don't look like the type to owe anybody anything." Marcus left a $20 tip and walked across the street. The apartment building needed paint and new windows, but the hallways were clean. Kids' bicycles lined the walls. The smell of cooking drifted from behind closed doors. This was a place where people looked out for each other. He found apartment 2B and knocked. No answer. Of course not. Lillian would be at work. The twins at school. Marcus settled in his car to wait. Surveillance was mostly about patience. And coffee. And try not to think too hard about the lives you were about to change. Around noon, a young woman walked up the steps. Tall, confident stride, textbooks under her arm. Maya, according to his research. The angry twin. She paused at the mailboxes, frowning at something. Then she looked directly at his car. Their eyes met through the windshield. Maya walked over and tapped on his window. "You lost? Or just creepy?" Marcus rolled down the window. "Neither. I'm looking for your mother." "Why?" "Direct. No small talk." He respected that. "I have information about your family. Your biological family." Maya's face went stone cold. "We don't have biological family. We have each other. Your father." "We don't have a father." Maya's voice could have cut glass. "Whatever you're selling, we're not buying." She turned to walk away. "He's dying." Maya stopped. Didn't turn around. "In Atlanta. He needs your help." "Good." Maya faced him again. "Hope it hurts." But something flickered in her eyes. Curiosity? Pain? Hope she was trying to kill before it could grow? "Your sister might feel different. Leave Grace out of this." Maya stepped closer to the car. "I don't know who sent you, but you need to leave. Now." "Richard Collins sent me." The name hit Maya like a physical blow. She stepped back, hand pressed her chest. "How do you know that name?" "Because it's on your birth certificate. The real one." Maya stared at him for a long moment. Then she pulled out her phone. "Grace? You need to come home. Now." Have you ever had someone come looking for secrets from your past? Would you run or face them head on? Marcus watched Maya disappear into the building. He'd found them. The hard part was about to begin. His phone rang. Patricia again. "Well, I found them." "But Marcus." He stared up at the apartment building. "These aren't desperate people looking for a handout. They built a good life. Strong family. Asking them to risk that for a man who abandoned them. It's not going to be easy. Richard's running out of time." "I know." Marcus closed his eyes. But they might be running out of peace. He'd tracked down missing heirs before, but never ones whose blood was the only thing standing between their father and death. And never ones who had every reason to let him die. Some secrets are kept to protect others, but when life and death hang in the balance, even the most sacred lies must be sacrificed. The church parking lot stood empty except for Marcus's sedan and Lillian's beat-up Honda. Their conversation echoed off brick walls that had witnessed decades of confessions, but none quite like this. Lillian sat in her car with the engine running, hands gripping the steering wheel. She'd agreed to meet this stranger because Maya had called her crying. Maya never cried. Not when kids at school made fun of their clothes. Not when boys broke Grace's heart. Not even when the power got shut off 3 winters ago. But she cried about a man who claimed to know their father. Marcus approached her window slowly, hands visible. He'd changed out of his suit into jeans and a plain shirt. Less threatening. More human. "Mrs. Carter? Thank you for coming." Lillian rolled down her window, but didn't get out. "You've got 5 minutes to explain why you're disrupting my family. Richard Collins is dying. He needs a blood transfusion from someone with a very rare blood type. Your daughters are perfect matches. My daughters don't know anyone named Richard Collins. But you do." Silence stretched between them. A church bell tolled somewhere in the distance. "He doesn't know about them," Lillian said finally. "He does now." Lillian's composure cracked. "You told him?" "The hospital told him. When they ran the donor search and found 2 perfect matches with the surname Carter." Marcus kept his voice gentle. "He put the pieces together. And now he wants their blood. Now he wants to meet them. To explain. To ask for their help." Lillian laughed, but there was no humor in it. 23 years too late for explanations. It's never too late to save a life. Whose life? Lillian's eyes flashed. Because I spent 23 years saving theirs. From poverty. From shame. From a man who threw me away like garbage when gossip got inconvenient. Marcus had read the reports. The whispered accusations among household staff. The society wise who complained about the pretty young Maid spending too much time alone with their husbands. Richard's cowardly response when confronted. He made mistakes. He made choices. Lillian got out of her car, facing Marcus across the empty parking lot. I was 19 years old, naive enough to believe a rich man's promises. When the rumors started, he didn't defend me. He didn't stand up for what we had. He handed me severance pay and told me to disappear. You never told him about the pregnancy? Why? So he could pay for an abortion? So he could move me somewhere quiet until I gave birth and handed him babies to raise in his cold, empty world? Lillian's voice shook with old anger. My girls deserved better than being his secret shame. Marcus understood family loyalty. He'd grown up with a single mother who worked 3 jobs to keep them housed and fed. But he'd also seen what money could do. Medical bills that bankruptcy couldn't touch. College dreams deferred forever. Opportunities that only came to people born on the right side of the economic divide. He's changed. Has he? Lillian crossed her arms. Or is he just scared of dying alone? Does it matter? Your daughters could save his life. At what cost? Maya spent her whole life protecting Grace from a world that undervalues black women. Grace believes in fairy tales and second chances. What happens when they meet their father and discover he's just another powerful man who thinks money fixes everything? What happens if they don't meet him and spend the rest of their lives wondering? That hit home. Lillian flinched. You think money gives them the right to their blood? Her voice shook. Those girls are mine. I earned them with every floor I scrubbed, every double shift I worked, every night I stayed awake when they had fever or nightmares or broken hearts. I'm not disputing that. But they're adults now. Don't they have a right to choose? Lillian was quiet for a long moment, staring at the church where she'd brought her daughters every Sunday for 20 years, where Grace had sung in the youth choir, where Maya had learned to debate theology with visiting ministers, where they'd build a community that saw them as whole people, not abandoned children. He has maybe 72 hours, Marcus said gently. After that, my secret dies with him. And your daughters never know where half their DNA came from. Never know if they have medical history they should be aware of. Never know if they could have saved a life. What would you do if protecting your children meant letting someone die? Even someone who'd hurt you beyond forgiveness? Lillian closed her eyes. What exactly are you asking me? Marcus pulled out a hospital report. Blood work shows your daughters are 99.7% compatible. The transfusion has risks, but they're minimal for healthy young women their age. Lillian's hands trembled as she read the medical terminology. And if they refuse? Then Richard Collins dies, and his estate goes to distant relatives who never knew him. $3 billion that could change communities like this one will go to people who won't even miss it. You're bribing me. I'm giving you information. What you do with it is your choice. Lillian looked up at the church steeple pointing toward heaven. She'd prayed every night for 23 years that her girls would have opportunities she'd never had, that they'd be stronger than she'd been, that they'd never have to choose between dignity and survival. Now the universe was asking her to choose between protecting them and letting them choose for themselves. I need to tell them the truth first. All of it. Lillian nodded. They deserve to know who they're deciding to save. Or let die. Marcus handed her his card. When you're ready, call me. But Mrs. Carter, time isn't on our side here.
As he walked back to his car, Lillian remained standing in the empty parking lot. 23 years of carefully built walls were about to come down. Her daughters were about to learn that the father they'd never known was dying 200 miles away, and that his blood was calling out for theirs. Grace Carter had always felt different, like she was waiting for something she couldn't name. Today, she discovered that something had a name: Richard Collins. Their small living room felt smaller as Lillian's words filled every corner. 23 years of silence breaking like a dam, flooding the space where they'd built their life on careful omissions and protective lies. Your father. Lillian's voice cracked on the word she'd never said aloud. Your biological father is a man named Richard Collins. Maya stood by the window, arms crossed, jaw set like stone. She'd been angry since Marcus showed up. Now she looked ready for war. Grace sat on the couch, hands folded in her lap, processing each word like pieces of a puzzle she'd been solving her whole life. He's sick, Grace asked quietly. Dying. Lillian couldn't look at either daughter. His blood is, there's something wrong with it. Poisoning him. He needs a transfusion from someone with the same rare blood type. The same blood type we have, Maya said flatly. Yes. Grace absorbed this. The green flecks in her eyes, so unusual in their family, suddenly made sense. The way she'd always felt restless, like part of her belonged somewhere else. The dreams she had sometimes of a man's voice calling her name. He didn't know about us? Grace asked. Lillian's silence was answer enough. But he knows now, Maya said. And now he wants our blood to save his sorry ass. Maya. No, Mama. Don't you dare defend him. Maya turned from the window, her face fierce with protective anger. He threw you away, made you leave town in shame. Never once tried to find out if you were okay. And now, when he's facing death, suddenly he cares about the children he never wanted? Grace looked between her mother and sister, the two strongest women she knew, both hurting in different ways. Tell me about him, Grace said. Grace, don't. Maya sat on the couch beside her twin. Don't do this to yourself. I need to know. Lillian sank in her chair, looking older than her 43 years. He was charming, intelligent. He made me feel like I mattered, like I was more than just the help. We talked for hours while I cleaned his study. About books, about dreams, about what we wanted from life. And then the other staff started noticing, started talking. The society wives who came to dinner parties started complaining that their husbands paid too much attention to me. Lillian's voice grew bitter. Instead of defending what we had, instead of standing up for me, Richard chose his reputation. Maya squeezed Grace's hand. You see? He's selfish. Always has been. But Grace was thinking about the patients she worked with at the hospital. How people changed when they faced death. How fear could strip away pretense and reveal who someone really was underneath. He's scared, she said. Good, Maya replied. Maya, what if? Grace turned to face her twin. What if this is why we became nurses? What if we're supposed to save people, even people who don't deserve it, especially people who don't deserve it? Maya stared at her sister like she'd lost her mind. Grace, he abandoned us. He chose his comfortable life over his own children. Why should we risk anything to save him? Because that's who we are. Grace's voice grew stronger. Because Mama raised us to be better than the people who hurt us. Lillian watched her daughters, so different, so connected. Maya, fierce and protective, ready to fight the world for the people she loved. Grace, gentle and forgiving, seeing possibility where others saw only pain. There's more, Lillian said quietly. The investigator said, Richard is worth billions. His estate would go to distant relatives if he dies. But if you're his acknowledged children, we don't want his money, Maya said immediately. But think about what we could do with it, Grace said, eyes lighting up. Medical clinics in underserved communities. Scholarships for nursing students. We could change lives, Maya. We can change lives without blood money. Grace stood up, pacing to the window where Maya had been standing. She could see the community center where they'd volunteered since middle school. The apartments where single mothers worked multiple jobs to keep their families housed. The corner where Mr. Jenkins sold newspapers because his Social Security wasn't enough to live on. What if it's not about him? Grace said, what if it's about all the people we could help? Maya joined her at the window. And what if he takes one look at us and decides we're not good enough? What if he uses us for our blood and then disappears again? Then at least we'll know who he really is. Lillian watched her daughters struggle with a choice she'd been protecting them from their entire lives. The choice between safety and possibility. Between protecting themselves and helping someone who'd never helped them. I won't make this decision for you, she said. You're adults. But whatever you choose, we face it together. Grace pulled out her phone. What are you doing? Maya asked. Calling Dr. James. I want to know more about this blood type. About the procedure. About the risks. Maya grabbed her wrist. Grace, don't. Once you start down this road. I'm already on this road, Maya. We both are. We have been since the day we were born. Grace dialed a number. Dr. James answered on the second ring. Grace, is everything okay? His concern warmed her voice. I need to ask you about something medical. Hypothetically. Of course. If someone needed a blood transfusion to save their life, and you were a perfect match, would you do it? Even if you'd never met them. Dr. James was quiet for a moment. Are we talking about you? Maybe. Grace, where are you? I'm coming over. Have you ever felt like your life was about to change, but couldn't see how? Tell us about that moment when you had to choose between safety and the unknown. As Grace gave him her address, Maya sank onto the couch beside their mother. She's going to do it, Maya said. I know, and I can't let her go alone. I know that too. Maya looked at the woman who'd sacrificed everything to give him a good life. Mama, if we do this, if we save him, what happens to us? Lillian reached for her daughter's hand. I don't know, baby, but I raise you both to be strong enough to handle whatever comes. Outside, Dr. James's car pulled up. Grace met him at the door, and Maya could see the way he looked at her sister. Protective, caring, already half in love. At least one of them would have someone to catch her if this all fell apart. Grace came back inside with Dr. James, his presence filling the small room with quiet authority. So, he said, settling into a chair, tell me about this hypothetical blood transfusion. Grace looked at Maya, then at their mother. It's not hypothetical anymore. Maya Carter had spent her life fighting for respect in a world that underestimated her. She wasn't about to surrender her blood to the man who'd made that fight necessary. The city lights blurred through her tears as Maya walked the empty Charlotte streets. Each step echoed her heartbeat. Fast, angry, desperate to outrun a truth that had been chasing her all her life. Behind her, she could hear Marcus's footsteps. He'd been following her for 6 blocks, keeping his distance, but staying close enough to protect her from the shadows that seemed deeper tonight. Maya stopped under a streetlight and spun around. Stop following me. Marcus raised his hands, stepping into the light. It's not safe out here alone. I've been taking care of myself since I was 5 years old. I don't need protection from some hired gun. I'm not the enemy here, Maya. She laughed, but it came out broken. You work for him. That makes you exactly the enemy. Marcus stepped closer, his voice gentle. I work for a man who's dying. A man who just found out he has 2 daughters he never knew about. Whatever happened between him and your mother? Don't. Maya's voice cracked. Don't you dare defend him to me. The street felt empty except for distant traffic and the hum of electricity in the power lines above them. Maya wrapped her arms around herself, suddenly cold despite the warm night. He threw Mama away like garbage, she whispered. And now you want to save him? My blood is too good for a man who never thought we were good enough to exist. Marcus watched her face in the streetlight. He'd seen anger before, in war zones, in corporate boardrooms, in his own mirror during the dark years after his father left. But Maya's anger was different. It was grief wearing a disguise. What if I told you that refusing might destroy Grace more than agreeing ever could? Maya's head snapped up. What's that supposed to mean? Your sister has a good heart. If she finds out she could have saved someone's life and chose not to, how do you think she'll live with that? She'll be fine. We protect each other. From everything, even from her own conscience. Maya started walking again, faster this time. Marcus fell in a step beside her. Grace isn't like you, he said quietly. She doesn't have your armor. She doesn't need armor. She has me. And what happens when you can't protect her from herself? They'd reached the community center where the twins had volunteered since middle school. Maya stopped at the fence, gripping the chain links until her knuckles went white. You don't understand, she said. Grace sees the good in everyone. She thinks love fixes everything. She thinks if we save him, he'll suddenly become the father we never had. And you think he'll disappoint her. I know he will. Maya's voice broke completely now. Because men like Richard Collins don't change. They just get better at hiding who they really are. Marcus leaned against the fence beside her. What if you're wrong? What if I'm right? What if we save his life and he takes one look at us and decides we're not worth his time? What if he uses us for our blood and then goes back to his perfect rich life while Grace spends the rest of hers wondering why she wasn't enough? The question hung in the air between them. Maya's breathing was rapid, panicked. I can't let that happen to her, she whispered. Marcus turned to face her fully. So, you'd rather make the choice for her? Decide what she can and can't handle. I'd rather protect her from making the biggest mistake of her life. Or you'd rather protect yourself from taking the biggest risk of yours. Maya spun to face him, eyes blazing. What's that supposed to mean? Maybe this isn't about Grace at all. Maybe you're scared that if you meet your father, you'll want his love. And maybe you're terrified that you won't get it. The words hit Maya like a physical blow. She stumbled backward, hitting the fence. You don't know anything about me. I know you've spent your whole life being strong for everyone else. I know you work twice as hard as everyone around you because you're afraid if you stop, people will see you as weak. I know you love your sister so much it scares you. Maya's breath came in short gasps. Stop. And I know you're angry at a man you've never met because part of you has been waiting your whole life for him to come find you. Stop talking. Marcus caught her arm as she tried to walk away. The touch was gentle but firm. I'm not your enemy, Maya. Neither is he. She looked up at him, tears streaming down her face. For the first time since he'd appeared in her life, she let him see past the anger to the hurt underneath. What if we save him and it changes nothing? What if we're still just his dirty secret? What if you save him and it changes everything? What if you discover you're stronger than you think? Have you ever been torn between doing what's right and protecting what's yours? Between facing your fears and running from the truth? Maya leaned against Marcus without meaning to, her defenses finally cracking. He wrapped his arms around her, holding her while she sobbed against his chest. I hate him, she whispered. I hate him for making me choose between protecting Grace and saving his life. Maybe that's not the choice, Marcus said softly. Maybe the choice is between letting fear make your decisions or trusting that you and Grace are strong enough to handle whatever comes next. Maya pulled back to look at him. In the streetlight, his face was kind but honest. He wasn't trying to manipulate her or sell her easy answers. You really think he's changed? I think he's human, which means he's probably both better and worse than you imagine. Maya's phone buzzed with a text from Grace. Where are you? Dr. James explained the procedure. We need to talk. Maya showed Marcus the screen. She's going to do it, isn't she? Probably. And if I don't go with her, she'll go alone. Maya closed her eyes, feeling the weight of 23 years of being the protector, the strong one, the sister who made the hard choices. If I agree to this, she said quietly, and he breaks her heart. Marcus caught her hands in his. Then you'll be there to pick up the pieces, like you always have been. Maya stared at their joined hands. When had she started trusting this stranger? When had his opinions started matching to her? Why do you care what happens to us? Marcus was quiet for a long moment. Because I spent my whole childhood wondering about my father. Wondering if he ever thought about me. if he ever regretted walking away. And when he died 5 years ago, I realized I'd never get those answers. I am sorry. Don't be sorry. Just don't make my mistake. Don't let fear rob you of the chance to know the truth. Maya's phone buzzed again. Another text from Grace. Maya, please come home. Whatever we decide together. Maya looked at Marcus one more time. If we do this, will you stay? Until we know how it ends. If you want me to. Maya nodded, not trusting her voice. They walked back toward her apartment in comfortable silence. Behind them, the community center sat quiet and dark, holding 20 years of memories. Ahead of them, Grace waited with medical information that would change their lives forever. And 200 miles away in Atlanta, a man Maya had never met fought for his life with blood that called out for hers. Whether she answered that call or not was still her choice. But she was finally ready to make it with her eyes open instead of her fists closed. The road to Atlanta stretched ahead like a bridge between two worlds, one where they were nobody's daughters and one where their blood could resurrect a king. Grace packed her overnight bag with the same careful attention she used for everything. Clean clothes folded precisely, toiletries in zippered pouches, the small leather journal where she wrote her prayers and painted tiny watercolors on the margins. Maya threw random items into a duffel bag, moving with barely controlled energy. 3 changes of clothes, her nursing textbooks, and the pepper spray their mother had made them carry since they turned 16. Interstate 85 unrolled beneath their tires like a timeline in reverse. Each mile marker counted down to the moment when the Carter women would walk back into Richard Collins' life, this time holding all the power. Lillian drove in focused silence, both hands on the wheel. She'd called in sick to work, the first time in 5 years. Her supervisor understood family emergencies, especially medical ones. Marcus followed in his rental car, giving the family space but staying close enough to help if things went wrong. Tell me again what Dr. James said about the risks, Maya said from the back seat. Grace consulted her notes. Blood donation is generally safe for healthy adults. Some people feel dizzy or tired afterward. In rare cases, there can be complications, but how rare? Less than 1%. Maya stared out the window at pine trees and billboards advertising everything from fast food to salvation. And if we don't do it, he dies within 48 hours. The math was simple. 2 young women with everything to live for versus one older man who'd wasted most of his opportunities. From a purely logical standpoint, the choice was obvious. But logic had never been Grace's strong suit. Mama, Grace said quietly. What was he like? Really like? Lillian glanced in the rearview mirror. Which version do you want? The man I fell in love with, or the man who broke my heart? Both. He was electric. When Richard walked into a room, everyone noticed. Not just because he was handsome, though he was, but because he had this way of making you feel like you were the only person who mattered. Maya snorted. Sounds like a player. Maybe he was. Or maybe he was just lonely. Lillian's voice grew softer. He told me once that his parents raised him to be successful, not happy. That he'd spent his whole life doing what was expected instead of what he wanted. And what did he want? To matter to someone. To be loved for who he was instead of what he could provide. Grace absorbed this, adding it to the mental picture she'd been building of their father. A powerful man who felt powerless in his personal life. A billionaire who couldn't buy the one thing he actually needed. But he chose his reputation over you, Maya pointed out. He chose safety over risk. I can't entirely blame him for that. I was 19 and naive. He was 28 and being groomed to take over his family's company. The scandal could have destroyed everything he'd worked for. So he destroyed you instead. Lillian's hands tightened on the steering wheel. He hurt me, but he didn't destroy me. You two are proof of that. The GPS announced they were 20 miles from Atlanta. 20 miles from answers they'd wondered about their entire lives. Grace's phone rang. Dr. James, how are you feeling? His voice was warm, even through the speaker. Nervous, excited, terrified. That sounds about right for a day that's going to change your life. Maya leaned forward. Dr. James? This is Maya. If something goes wrong during the procedure, nothing's going to go wrong. I spoke with the team at Emory. They're excellent, and you'll both be monitored constantly. But if something does, Maya, Grace turned to face her twin. We're going to be fine. You don't know that. I have faith. Faith doesn't stop medical complications. Dr. James's voice came through the phone again. Maya, I understand your concern, but Grace is right. The risks are minimal, and the potential to save a life is enormous.
Easy for you to say. It's not your blood. Grace ended the call and took her sister's hand. Maya, look at me. Maya reluctantly met her eyes. Do you trust me? Of course. Then trust me when I say we're supposed to do this. I can feel it. Maya wanted to argue, but something in Grace's expression stopped her. Her twin had always been intuitive about people and situations. When Grace got a feeling about something, she was usually right, even when being right led straight into heartbreak. Promise me something, Maya said. What? Promise me that no matter what happens with him, no matter how this goes, we stay us. We don't let his money or his world change who we are. Grace squeezed her hand. Promise. Lillian caught her daughter's eyes in the rearview mirror. Promise me something too. Anything, Mama. Promise me you'll be careful with your hearts. Powerful men know how to say the right things. They know how to make you feel special. But they also know how to walk away when things get complicated. You think he'll disappoint us? I think he's human, which means he'll probably do both, disappoint you and surprise you. The Atlanta skyline rose before them like a city of glass and steel dreams. Somewhere in those towers of commerce and ambition, Richard Collins lay dying in a hospital bed. Within hours, they would meet the man whose DNA they carried, whose eyes they might have inherited, whose blood called out for theirs across the miles and years of separation. What would you do if you were about to meet the parent who never knew you existed? Would you lead with anger or hope? Grace stared up at the buildings reaching toward heaven and whispered a prayer for wisdom, for courage, for the strength to handle whatever truth waited for them in that hospital room. Maya checked her phone one more time. Marcus had texted, "Whatever happens today, you're not facing it alone." She didn't reply, but she saved the message. Behind them, Charlotte grew smaller in the distance. The life they'd known for 23 years, safe and predictable and small. Ahead of them, Atlanta spread out like a promise and a threat. By tonight, they would know if Richard Collins was worthy of the sacrifice they were about to make. They would know if their blood could resurrect not just his body, but the family they'd never had, or if some bridges were too burned to ever rebuild. The marble lobby of Collins Industries gleamed like a cathedral of capitalism. But today, 3 women from Charlotte held the power to grant or deny resurrection. The elevator rose 40 floors in silence, but the tension between the Carter women filled every inch of space. 3 generations of strength preparing to face the man who'd shaped their lives from the shadows. Maya counted floors on the digital display. 35, 36, each number bringing them closer to a confrontation 23 years in the making. Grace studied her reflection in the polished steel doors. Did she look like him? Would he see himself in her face? Or would they be strangers sharing nothing but genetics? Lillian smoothed her dress, the nicest one she owned, bought for Grace's nursing school graduation. She'd worn it to celebrate her daughter's achievement. Now she wore it to face the man who'd nearly prevented that achievement from happening. The elevator chimed softly. 40th floor. The doors opened to reveal a reception area that screamed money and power. Leather furniture that cost more than most people's cars. Art on the walls worth more than most people's houses. Fresh flowers arranged with the kind of casual perfection that only came from having staff to handle such details. A woman in her 50s approached them. Patricia, according to Marcus's briefing. Richard's assistant for 12 years. She looked like she'd been crying. Mrs. Carter? Patricia's voice was professional but strained. I'm Patricia Williams. Thank you for coming. How is he? Grace asked immediately. Not good. The doctors they're doing everything they can, but... Patricia's composure cracked slightly. He's been asking for you. All of you. Even in his delirium. Maya felt something twist in her chest. Guilt? Hope? She couldn't tell anymore. We need to see him. Lillian said quietly. Of course. But first, Patricia gestured toward a conference room. There are some people who'd like to meet you. The conference room held a table that could seat 20, but only 3 people waited for them. 2 men in expensive suits, board members, Maya guessed from their entitled posture, and a younger man, maybe 30, with Richard's eyes and an expression caught between curiosity and hostility. This is Blake Collins, Patricia said, Richard's nephew, and board members Harrison Webb and Michael Torres. Blake stood first, extending his hand to Lillian. Mrs. Carter, I've heard a lot about you. I doubt that, Lillian replied, but she shook his hand. Blake turned to the twins. Grace, Maya, I guess I'm your cousin. Grace smiled tentatively. Nice to meet you. Maya studied Blake like he was a potential threat, which, given the family dynamics, he probably was. We need to discuss the situation, Harrison Webb said without preamble. Mr. Collins's condition, the medical procedures, and other matters. Other matters? Maya's voice could have cut glass. Michael Torres opened a folder. Legal matters. If the transfusion is successful, if Mr. Collins recovers, there will be questions about paternity, inheritance, family structure. We're not here for money, Grace said firmly. Of course not, Torres replied in a tone that suggested he didn't believe her. But the reality is that Mr. Collins is worth approximately $3 billion. If you are indeed his biological daughters. If, Maya stepped forward. We took DNA tests yesterday. The results are being rushed. But even without them, one look at our faces should answer your questions. Blake had been studying the twins throughout the conversation. Now he spoke up. She's right. They have his eyes, his stubborn chin. Grace even has that little scar through her eyebrow that he got falling off his bike as a kid. Grace touched her eyebrow unconsciously. She'd always wondered about that scar. The point, Harrison continued, is that Collins Industries need stability, continuity. If Richard doesn't survive, then you'll be free to run his company without any inconvenient family members getting in the way, Maya finished. Harrison's face flushed. That's not what I was suggesting. Wasn't it? Blake held up his hands. Look, I know this is awkward for everyone. But right now, the only thing that matters is saving Uncle Richard's life. Everything else we can figure out later. Patricia checked her watch. The hospital is expecting us in 30 minutes. The medical team wants to do final consultations before the procedure. As they prepared to leave, Blake caught Grace's arm gently. Hey, I know this is overwhelming. If you need anything at all, just ask. Grace looked up at him, this cousin she'd never known existed, and saw genuine kindness in his face. Thank you. Maya watched the interaction with growing unease. Blake was handsome, well-dressed, clearly wealthy. Everything Grace had ever been attracted to in the movies she loved and the books she read. Everything that spelled trouble for a girl with a tender heart and romantic dreams. The ride to Emory Hospital passed in a blur of Atlanta traffic and nervous silence. Marcus met them in the parking garage, his face serious. The doctors want to speak with you before you see him, he said. To prepare you. Prepare us for what? Maya demanded. He doesn't look good. The illness has progressed rapidly, and he's been in and out of consciousness. They walked through the hospital corridors like a funeral procession. Doctors, nurses, and administrative staff stopped to stare. Word had spread about the dramatic family reunion playing out in their halls. Dr. Martinez met them outside the ICU. Ms. Carter and Ms. Carter, I'm Dr. Martinez. Thank you for coming. She led them to a family consultation room. Before we proceed, I need to explain exactly what we're asking of you. The transfusion procedure will require substantial blood donations from both of you. We're talking about a process that could take several hours and will leave you both weak and tired for days. Is it dangerous? Lillian asked. Any medical procedure carries risks. But for healthy young women your age, the risks are minimal. The greater risk is to Mr. Collins if we don't proceed quickly. Grace nodded. We understand. There's something else. Dr. Martinez hesitated. He's been asking for you, specifically, by name. Even though he's never met you, he seems to know who you are. Maya felt that twist in her chest again, stronger this time. "You want to see us?" Grace asked. "Very much. But I want to warn you. You may not be entirely coherent. The illness affects cognitive function. You might say things that don't make sense or that are difficult to hear. Have you ever been about to face something that would change your entire understanding of yourself? The moment when your past and future collide?" The ICU doors opened with a mechanical whisper. And there he was, Richard Collins, the titan of industry, reduced to tubes and monitors. But it was Grace who gasped, not at his frailty, but at his face. "Maya," she whispered, gripping her sister's hand. "We look exactly like him. Even pale and unconscious, even diminished by illness, Richard Collins's features were unmistakably reflected in his daughter's faces. The same strong jawline, the same expressive eyebrows, the same mouth that could be stubborn or tender depending on the moment. For 23 years, they'd wonder where they came from. Now, they knew. They were looking at their father, and he was dying. Richard Collins opened his eyes to find salvation standing at his bedside, wearing the face of the woman he'd wronged and the eyes of daughters he'd never known he'd lost. The ICU room hummed with machines keeping him alive, but the silence between father and daughters spoke louder than any alarm. 23 years of absence filling the space between his hospital bed and their folding chairs. Richard's eyes moved slowly from Lillian to Grace to Maya, trying to process what he was seeing through the fog of medication and illness. "Lillian." His voice came out as a whisper, barely audible above the mechanical breathing of the ventilator that had been removed an hour ago. "You came." "They came," Lillian corrected, nodding toward her daughters. "Grace and Maya." Richard's gaze settled on Grace first, taking in her gentle expression and the way she leaned forward slightly, as if drawn to him despite everything. "Grace," he repeated, testing the name. "You're beautiful. Both of you." Maya remained rigid in her chair, arms crossed, studying him like a specimen under a microscope. "You look like her," Richard continued, his eyes on Grace. "Like your mother when she was young. But you have your eyes," Grace finished softly. "People always said we had unusual eyes." A weak smile crossed Richard's face. "Your grandmother Collins had eyes like that, green with gold flecks. She used to say they were fairy eyes." Despite herself, Grace smiled back. "Mama said they were trouble eyes." "Your mother was usually right about trouble." Maya's voice cut through the moment like ice. "Is that what we are? Trouble?" Richard turned to study his other daughter, the angry one, the protector, the one who looked at him like he was the enemy. "You're Maya." It wasn't a question. "That's right. You hate me. I don't know you well enough to hate you. But I hate what you did to my mother." Richard closed his eyes for a moment. When he opened them again, they were bright with unshed tears. "I was a coward," he said simply. 23 years ago, I was young and scared and stupid. I chose the easy path instead of the right path. And now you're dying," Maya said flatly. "Yes. And you need our blood to live." "Yes." Convenient. Dr. Martinez entered the room with a chart and a concerned expression. "Mr. Collins, you should rest. Save your strength for the procedure." "No." Richard's voice grew stronger. "I need to say this. All of it." He struggled to sit up straighter, the effort clearly exhausting him. "Lillian, I'm sorry. I'm sorry I was too weak to defend what we had. I'm sorry I let other people's opinions matter more than your feelings. I'm sorry I threw away the best thing that ever happened to me." Lillian's composure finally cracked. Tears ran down her cheeks. "And Grace, Maya." Richard's gaze moved between his daughters. "I'm sorry I wasn't there. For first steps and first words and birthdays and scraped knees and broken hearts. I'm sorry you grew up thinking your father didn't want you." "Didn't you?" Maya challenged. "I didn't know you existed. But if I had..." Richard's voice broke. "If I had known, I would have fought for you. I would have been better. I would have been the father you deserved." Grace reached for his hand before she could stop herself. His fingers were cold, but they wrapped around hers with surprising strength. "We're here now," she said softly. "That's what matters." Maya stared at their joined hands with something like horror. "Grace, don't what? Don't forgive him? Don't give him a chance?" Don't let him manipulate you with pretty words and deathbed confessions. Richard's eyes fixed on Maya. You're right to be angry. You're right to protect your sister. That's what big sisters do. Maya blinked in surprise. How did you know? You were born first. For minutes before Grace. I had Patricia pull the hospital records. Richard's smile was weak but genuine. 4 minutes older and already fighting for her. Despite herself, Maya felt something soften in her chest. The doctors say we're perfect matches, Grace said. Perfect, Richard agreed. Like it was meant to be. Or like genetics, Maya said dryly. Maybe both. Blake appeared in the doorway, hesitant to interrupt. Uncle Richard, the medical team needs to prep for the procedure. Richard nodded, but didn't let go of Grace's hand. Before they take me away, I need you both to know something. Whether you save my life or not, whether I live or die, you've already given me the greatest gift imaginable. What's that? Grace asked. The chance to see that something good came from my mistakes. The chance to know that even though I failed Lillian, she succeeded in raising 2 incredible women. Maya felt tears threatening and blinked them back angrily. I have one request, Richard continued. If something goes wrong during the procedure, if I don't make it, don't talk like that, Grace protested. If I don't make it, he pressed on, I want you both to know that you're provided for. College funds, trust accounts, whatever you need to build the lives you want. But more than that, he turned to Maya. I want you to know that your anger is justified. I want you to know that protecting Grace makes you a better person than I ever was. And I want you to know that I'm proud of you both. Maya's tears finally spilled over. You don't get to be proud. You don't know anything about us. I know you're studying nursing. I know Grace volunteers at children's hospitals. I know you both work at community centers, helping families like the one you grew up in. I know you're everything I should have been and never was. The medical team entered the room with equipment and purpose. Time for talking had run out. We need to prep for the transfusion, Dr. Martinez announced. Ms. Grace, Ms. Maya, are you ready? Grace looked at Maya. Maya looked at their father. Richard looked at both of them with eyes that held 23 years of regret and a lifetime of hope. What would you say if you had one chance to forgive someone who'd abandoned you? One chance to save a life, even if it belonged to someone who'd never save yours? Yes, Grace said firmly. We're ready. Maya hesitated for one more moment. Then she squeezed her father's other hand. Don't make us regret this, she whispered. I won't, Richard promised. I swear to you I won't. As they wheeled him toward the operating room, his last conscious thought was wonder. Wonder that something so good had come from his biggest mistake. Wonder that mercy could flow through the veins of daughters who owed him nothing. Wonder that love, even love interrupted by decades of absence, could still call blood to blood across the miles and years. His daughters followed him down the hallway, ready to give him the one gift that might resurrect not just his body, but his chance at redemption. The blood flowed between father and daughters like a river of second chances. But some bridges take more than blood to rebuild. Maya watched her blood travel through clear tubing toward the man she'd spent 23 years hating without knowing his name. The irony wasn't lost on her. Her life force keeping alive the person who'd abandoned her before she took her first breath. Grace lay on the bed beside her, humming softly while nurses monitored her vital signs. Even during a medical procedure, her sister found ways to bring peace to stressful situations. It was a gift Maya both admired and worried about. How are you feeling? Dr. Martinez asked, checking Maya's blood pressure. Like I'm making the biggest mistake of my life, Maya muttered. Or the most important decision, Grace countered without opening her eyes. The procedure room buzzed with quiet efficiency. Machines beeped steadily. Nurses moved with practiced calm. Through the observation window, Maya could see Lillian pacing in the hallway, wringing her hands like she had during their childhood when money got tight and bills came due. Your blood pressure is elevated, Dr. Martinez noted. Try to relax. Maya laughed without humor. Relaxing while giving blood to save someone who threw away my mother isn't exactly natural for me. Blake appeared at the window, offering an encouraging wave. Grace smiled and waved back weakly. Maya pretended not to notice how her sister's face lit up when she saw their cousin. One more complication she didn't need. Tell me about him, Grace said suddenly. About who? Richard. What kind of man was he before he got sick? Dr. Martinez hesitated. He's intense, demanding. He built Collins Industries from a small construction company into a billion-dollar empire. He doesn't accept failure, especially from himself. Sounds like someone else I know, Grace said, glancing at Maya. Maya ignored the comparison. Did he have a family? Wife? Other children? Never married. No other children that we know of. He dated, but nothing serious. Patricia says he threw himself into work after. She paused diplomatically. After he destroyed his relationship with our mother, Maya finished. People handle guilt differently, Dr. Martinez said carefully. Some people run toward their mistakes. Others run away from them. Through the intercom, they could hear activity in the next room where Richard was receiving their blood. His vital signs were improving, but slowly. Too slowly. What if it doesn't work? Grace asked. It'll work, Maya said firmly. She wasn't sure why she felt so certain, but something deep in her bones said their blood would save him. The question was whether saving his life would destroy theirs. Marcus entered the observation area, speaking quietly with Lillian. Maya couldn't hear the conversation, but she could read her mother's body language. Tension, worry, the kind of fear that came from watching your children walk into situations you couldn't control. Ms. Maya, I need you to stay calm, Dr. Martinez warned as Maya's monitors started beeping faster. Your stress levels are affecting the donation. Maya closed her eyes and tried to find the meditation techniques she'd learned during nursing school. Breathe in for 4 counts. Hold for 4. Out for 4. But instead of calm, she found memories. 5 years old, asking why they didn't have a daddy like other kids. 10 years old, watching Lillian work double shifts to pay for school supplies. 15 years old, defending Grace from boys who thought poor girls were easy targets. 20 years old, watching their mother cry when she thought they were asleep, exhaustion and worry etched into every line of her face. All because one man was too weak to stand up for what was right. Maya. Grace's voice cut through her anger. Look at me. Maya opened her eyes to find her sister watching her with concern. Whatever you're thinking about, stop. Right now, we're saving a life. That's all that matters. How can you be so calm about this? Grace was quiet for a moment. Remember when we were kids and that dog got hit by a car outside our apartment? Maya remembered. A stray that had been hanging around the building for weeks. Grace had been feeding it scraps from their dinner, despite Lillian's warnings about stray animals. You ran right into traffic to pull it to safety, Grace continued. You didn't think about whether it deserved help. You just saw something hurt and acted. A dog is different than, is it? He's hurt, Maya. Dying. And we're the only ones who can help. Maya wanted to argue, but she was too tired. The blood donation was taking more out of her than she'd expected. Or maybe it was the emotional weight of the situation. The donation is complete, Dr. Martinez announced. Both of you did great. Nurses moved efficiently to disconnect the equipment and monitor both women for complications. Maya felt dizzy when she sat up, but otherwise fine. Grace swayed slightly when she stood, and Blake immediately appeared at her side to steady her. Easy there, he said gently. You just gave a lot of blood. Maya watched the interaction with growing irritation. Grace leaning into Blake's support, his protective hand on her back. The way they looked at each other like they were the only people in the room. Grace needs to rest, Maya said firmly. Of course. Blake helped Grace to a wheelchair. The family has a suite reserved at the Ritz-Carlton. You can recover there in comfort. We don't need, Maya started. Thank you, Grace interrupted, shooting her sister a warning look. That's very kind. As they wheeled toward the recovery area, Maya caught sight of Richard through the observation window. He looked better already, color returning to his face, breathing easier. Their blood was working. He was going to live. Now the real test began. Would he prove worthy of the gift they'd given him? Or would he break their hearts the way he'd broken their mothers? Have you ever saved someone you weren't sure deserved saving? Ever wondered if mercy was just another word for being foolish? Patricia met them in the hallway with tears streaming down her face. The doctors say he's responding well. His vital signs are stabilizing. Maya felt something twist in her chest. Relief? Disappointment? She couldn't tell anymore. When can we see him? Grace asked. Tomorrow morning, if his recovery continues. He'll be weak but conscious. Tomorrow they would face Richard Collins again. This time as the daughters who'd saved his life, not just the children he'd never known. This time, he would owe them everything, and Maya intended to collect. Richard Collins woke to find himself alive, a miracle paid for with blood he'd never earned a right to receive. The morning sun filtered through hospital blinds, painting golden stripes across Richard's face as consciousness slowly returned. For the first time in weeks, breathing didn't feel like drowning. His blood moved through his veins clean and strong. Clean because his daughters had washed it with their own. Dr. Martinez checked his charts with barely concealed amazement. Your numbers are better than we dared hope. The transfusion was completely successful. Richard tried to speak, but his throat was dry. A nurse brought him ice chips and water. Maya and Grace, he managed, recovering well. They'll be here soon. Richard closed his eyes and tried to process what had happened. 24 hours ago, he'd been dying alone. Today, he was alive because two young women he'd never met chose mercy over justice. His daughters had saved him. Patricia appeared in the doorway, her face bright with relief and exhaustion. How do you feel? She asked. Grateful, Richard said simply. Undeserving, but grateful. Patricia pulled a chair close to his bed. In 12 years as his assistant, she'd never seen him look so vulnerable. They're remarkable young women, she said. Smart, strong, compassionate. Lillian raised them well. Richard's face tightened with guilt. Despite me, not because of me. Maybe, but they're here now. That has to count for something. Down the hall, Maya paced the family lounge like a caged animal. The blood donation had left her weaker than expected, but rest was impossible when her mind wouldn't stop spinning. Grace sat curled in a chair by the window, sketching in her journal while Blake brought her tea and made conversation. Maya watched her sister laugh at something Blake said and felt her stomach clench with worry. You're staring, Lillian observed, settling into the chair beside Maya. He's moving too fast. Blake? He seems nice enough. Rich men always seem nice at first. That's how they get what they want. Lillian studied her daughter's face. Is this about Blake or about Richard? Maya stopped pacing. What's that supposed to mean? You're angry at the wrong person. Blake isn't his uncle. He's part of that world. Money, power, people who think they could buy anything they want. Including your sister's affections? Maya sank into a chair, suddenly exhausted. Grace sees the best in everyone. She thinks saving Richard's life means he's changed. But what if he hasn't? What if we gave him our blood, and he's still the same selfish man who threw you away? Lillian reached for Maya's hand. Then we'll deal with it. Together. Like we always have. Marcus appeared in the doorway, holding coffee and wearing a concerned expression. How are you feeling? He asked Maya. Tired. Confused. Angry. All normal responses to an abnormal situation. Maya accepted the coffee gratefully. Have you seen him? How is he? Better. Much better. The doctors are calling it remarkable. Grace looked up from her sketching. When can we see him? Now if you want. He's been asking for you. Maya and Grace exchanged glances. The moment of truth had arrived. They walked down the hospital corridor together, but Maya felt like they were walking toward completely different destinations. Grace moved with hopeful anticipation. Maya walked like she was approaching a battlefield. Richard's room looked different in daylight. Less desperate. More human. He was sitting up in bed, color restored to his face, eyes clear and focused. When he saw his daughters, his expression transformed. Joy mixed with shame, mixed with wonder. Grace. Maya. His voice was stronger than yesterday, but still rough with emotion. How do you feel? Fine, Grace said, taking the chair beside his bed. Glad you're better. Maya remained standing by the door, arms crossed. The doctors say you'll make a full recovery. Thanks to you. Both of you. Don't thank us yet, Maya said coldly. We haven't decided if saving you was the right choice. Richard absorbed this without flinching. What would convince you it was? Prove you've changed. Prove you're worthy of the second chance we gave you. Ow! Maya stepped closer to the bed by telling us the truth. All of it. No sanitized version designed to make you look better. Richard nodded slowly. What do you want to know? Start with my mother. What really happened between you? Richard was quiet for a long moment, gathering strength for confessions he'd avoided for 23 years. I was 28, supposed to marry Elizabeth Whitmore, merger of two wealthy families. It was arranged, expected, good for business. Grace leaned forward, fascinated despite herself. Then I met Lillian. She was 19, working in my father's house while finishing community college. She was light. Everything in my world was heavy. Expectations, responsibilities, social obligations. But when Lillian smiled, the weight lifted. Maya's expression remained stony. So you used her? No, I fell in love with her. The words hung in the air like an accusation. We talked for hours while she worked. About books, dreams, what we wanted from life. She wanted to help people. I wanted to matter to someone as more than just a Collins heir. But you couldn't marry her, Grace said softly. The thought terrified me. My family would have disowned me. The company would have suffered. I'd have lost everything I'd been raised to protect. Maya's voice cut like ice. So you protected your money instead of the woman you claimed to love. Yes, Richard said simply. When the rumors started, when the society wives began complaining, I chose the easy path. I paid Lillian severance and told her to leave town. Did you know she was pregnant? Grace asked. Richard's face crumbled. I suspected. She'd been sick in the mornings. Emotional, but I was too much of a coward to ask. Maya stepped closer. Because if you'd asked, you'd have had to make a real choice. Between your comfortable life and your children. Yes, and you chose comfort. Richard met Maya's angry gaze without flinching. I chose wrong. Every day, for 23 years, I've known I chose wrong. Grace studied her father's face, searching for lies or manipulation. But she saw only truth. Painful, ugly truth. What happens now? She asked. Now you decide if I deserve a chance to make things right. Maya laughed harshly. Make things right? You think money can buy back 23 years? No, but maybe it can build something new. Blake entered the room, carrying flowers and wearing a nervous smile. Sorry to interrupt. I brought these for Grace. Grace accepted the flowers with a blush that made Maya's stomach tighten. Actually, Richard said, studying the interaction, there's something else we need to discuss. All of us. The family gathered around his bed. Daughters he'd never known. The woman he'd wronged. The nephew who'd grown up in his shadow. If you're my daughters, Richard began, legally and biologically, then you're entitled to inherit from my estate. We don't want, Maya started. I'm not talking about handouts. I'm talking about responsibility. Collins Industries employs 50,000 people. The foundation supports hundreds of community programs. This isn't just about money, it's about impact. Grace absorbed this information with growing excitement. Maya felt trapped. What are you asking us? Grace said. Richard's eyes moved between his daughters. I'm asking you to consider becoming part of something bigger than yourselves. To use the resources you've inherited to change lives. Have you ever been offered everything you thought you wanted, only to discover it came with strings you weren't sure you could handle? Maya stared at her father, the man whose blood now flowed in her veins, whose empire he was offering to share. And if we refuse, then you walk away with my gratitude and my blessing. No strings attached. But Maya could see the hope in his eyes, the desperate need for redemption, the chance to finally be the father he'd never been. The question was, would saving his life be enough? Or would he find a way to break their hearts all over again? The Collins family tree had more thorns than branches, and Maya was about to discover that some secrets run deeper than blood. Blake's office on the 38th floor commanded a view of Atlanta that made Maya's head spin. Floor-to-ceiling windows revealed a city that looked like a child's toy from this height. She preferred ground level, where problems were human-sized and solutions didn't require billion-dollar decisions. You're uncomfortable, Blake observed, closing the door behind them. I don't belong in places like this. Why not? You're Collins now. Maya turned from the window to study Richard's nephew. Handsome, polished, everything Grace found attractive in men. Everything Maya didn't trust. What do you really want, Blake? He loosened his tie and sat on the edge of his desk, making himself less intimidating. A calculated move that irritated Maya more than his formal distance would have. I want to know my cousins. I want to understand what kind of people you are. Why? So you can report back to the board members who see us as threats to their power. Blake's laugh was genuine. Those old men are terrified of you. Two brilliant women with Richard's blood and none of his political baggage. You could revolutionize this company. Maya crossed her arms. Or destroy it. Could you? Would you? I don't know yet. The honesty seemed to surprise him. Blake studied Maya's face like he was trying to solve a puzzle. You're nothing like I expected, he said. What did you expect? Gold diggers. Social climbers. Women who'd throw themselves at the Collins fortune. Maya's eyes flashed with anger. Maybe that says more about the women in your world than it does about us. Maybe it does. Blake moved to the window, standing beside Maya, but not too close. I grew up watching Richard build this empire. Watching him work 18-hour days, attend charity galas, make decisions that affected thousands of lives. But I never saw him happy. Poor little rich man. I'm not asking for sympathy. I'm trying to explain something. Blake turned to face her. When he found out about you and Grace, when he realized he had daughters who'd grown up without him, it broke something inside him. Good. Maya, I've never seen him cry. Not when my father died. Not when the company almost went bankrupt in 2008. But when he saw your pictures, when he understood what he'd lost. Maya felt her resolve wavering and hated herself for it. Tears don't erase 23 years of abandonment. No, but they might be the start of something new. Before Maya could respond, the office door opened and Grace walked in with Patricia. Grace looked radiant in a dress Patricia had bought her. Designer, expensive, everything their mother's budget had never allowed. Maya, you should see the foundation offices. They have programs for exactly the kind of communities we grew up in. Patricia beamed with pride. Grace has some incredible ideas about expanding our healthcare initiatives. Maya watched her sister's excitement with growing unease. Grace was being seduced by the possibilities, by the chance to help people on a massive scale. Maya understood the appeal. But she also understood the cost of swimming with sharks, even when they wore expensive suits and smiled kindly. We need to talk, Maya told Grace. Alone, Blake and Patricia exchanged glances and made excuses to leave. When the office door closed, Maya faced her twin. Grace, you're moving too fast. With Blake? We're just talking. With all of it. Blake, Richard, this world. You're letting them sweep you off your feet. Grace sat in one of Blake's leather chairs, looking small but determined. What if this is why we became nurses, Maya? What if we were meant to help people, and now we have the resources to help them on a bigger scale? Or what if they're manipulating you, using your good heart against you? You think Blake is manipulating me? Maya studied her sister's face. The blush when Blake's name came up. The way she'd accepted expensive clothes and fancy dinners without questioning the cost. I think he's a rich man who's used to getting what he wants. And I think what he wants right now is to secure his place in this family by making sure at least one of Richard's daughters falls in line. Grace stood up, hurt flashing in her eyes. You think I'm that naive? I think you want to believe the best about people, even when they don't deserve it. Like you want to believe the worst about them, even when they might. The words hung between them like a challenge. Maya felt the familiar weight of being the protector, the one who had to see danger where Grace saw possibility. Someone has to be realistic, and someone has to have hope. They stared at each other across Blake's office, the city skyline framing their first real fight since childhood. Marcus appeared in the doorway, breaking the tension. Sorry to interrupt. Richard wants to see both of you. There's something else he needs to tell you. Maya and Grace followed Marcus back to Richard's hospital room in tense silence. Richard looked stronger today, sitting up in a chair by the window instead of lying in bed. How are you feeling? Grace asked, her concern genuine despite their argument. Better every day, thanks to you. Richard gestured to the chairs across from him. But there's something else you need to know. Something I should have told you yesterday. Maya's stomach tightened. More secrets. More complications. You have a half-brother. The words hit like physical blows. Grace gasped. Maya went rigid with shock. What? Grace whispered. His name is David. He's 25. His mother was a woman I dated briefly 8 years ago. Maya found her voice. Does he know about us? No, and he doesn't know about you. I made the same mistake twice. Grace stared at their father in horror. You abandoned another child? Richard's face crumpled with shame. Sarah, his mother, told me she was pregnant after we'd broken up. I offered to support them financially, but I didn't try to be a father. Where is he now? Maya demanded. Medical school. Johns Hopkins. Brilliant kid. Wants to be a pediatric surgeon. Maya felt the room spinning around her. Not only did they have a father who'd abandoned them, they had a brother who didn't know they existed. You have to tell him, Grace said firmly. I was hoping. Richard looked at his daughters with desperate hope. I was hoping you might help me tell him. Help me figure out how to be a family. Maya laughed bitterly. A family? You think you can just collect all your discarded children and play house? I think I could try to make things right by dumping more traumatic revelations on people who never asked to be part of your mess. Richard absorbed Maya's anger without defending himself. You're right. I'm asking too much. Grace was quiet, processing this new information. A brother. Someone who shared their DNA, their abandonment, their complicated feelings about the man who'd brought them into the world and then walked away. What's he like? She asked softly. Richard's face brightened slightly. Smart, driven, angry like Maya, but in a quieter way. He sends me medical journals sometimes, research he thinks might interest me. He contacts you? Occasionally. Sarah told him who his father was when he turned 18. He reached out carefully. We have lunch maybe twice a year. Maya stood up abruptly. I need air. She walked to the window, staring down at the city where thousands of people lived normal lives with normal families, where fathers didn't abandon multiple children and then expect grateful reunions when death came calling. Maya. Richard's voice was gentle. I know this is overwhelming. She turned to face him. Do you? Do you really understand what you're asking us to handle? I understand that I'm a selfish old man who's running out of time to fix his mistakes. You can't fix this, Maya said, tears threatening. You can't wave your hand and make us a family. You can't undo 23 years of wondering and hoping and eventually giving up. No, Richard agreed. But maybe I could try to build something new with whatever time I have left. Grace joined Maya at the window. What do you think we should do? Maya looked at her sister, brilliant, caring, still believing in happy endings despite everything life had taught them. I think, Maya said slowly, that we need to meet our brother. Richard's face flooded with relief and gratitude. Have you ever discovered that your family was bigger and more complicated than you ever imagined? That the people who share your blood might be strangers carrying their own pain? As they left the hospital that evening, Maya couldn't shake the feeling that they were walking deeper into a maze with no clear exit. First Richard, then Blake, now a brother who didn't know they existed. How many more family secrets were waiting to reshape their world? David Collins wielded a scalpel the way his father wielded power, with precision, purpose, and the weight of lives hanging in the balance. The pediatric surgery wing at Johns Hopkins hummed with controlled chaos as Dr. David Collins prepped for his third operation of the day. At 25, he was the youngest resident in the program, but his steady hands and cool judgment had earned respect from colleagues twice his age. His phone buzzed with a text message. Patricia Williams, Richard Collins' assistant. Family emergency. Need to speak with you urgently. David ignored it. Patricia contacted him maybe twice a year, usually when Richard was traveling and wanted to send David articles or book recommendations. David appreciated the gesture, but maintained careful distance from the father who'd funded his education but never taught him to ride a bike. The emergency room doors burst open as paramedics rushed in a 6-year-old car accident victim. David's training kicked in, pushing thoughts of family complications to the background. In the operating room, only the patient mattered. 3 hours later, David emerged exhausted but triumphant. the little girl would recover fully. These were the moments that justified every sleepless night of medical school, every sacrifice he'd made to get here. His phone showed 6 missed calls from Patricia and 2 from a number he didn't recognize. Dr. Sarah Chun, his supervising physician, found him at the nurse's station. "David, there's a woman here to see you. Says it's urgent family business." David looked up to see Patricia Williams standing in the hallway, her usually perfect composure cracked with stress. "Dr. Collins?" Patricia approached cautiously. "Thank you for seeing me. What's wrong? Is Richard?" "He's alive, but there's been a development. A big one." Patricia gestured toward a family consultation room. "We need privacy for this conversation." David followed her, mind racing through possibilities. Richard was only 51, healthy as far as David knew. What kind of family emergency required face-to-face delivery? Patricia closed the door and turned to face him. "David, what I'm about to tell you will change your understanding of your family." "Okay, your father has 2 other children. Daughters. Twins, age 23. David stared at her for a long moment. "What?" "Their names are Grace and Maya Carter. They live in Charlotte. Until 3 days ago, Richard didn't know they existed." David sank into a chair, processing this information. "How is that possible?" Patricia explained about Lillian, the hospital donation search, the DNA match that had revealed Richard's daughters. "They saved his life," she concluded. "Blood transfusion. Without them, he'd be dead." David's medical training helped him focus on facts when emotions threatened to overwhelm him. What was wrong with him? Rare blood disorder, poisoning his system. He needed donors with an extremely rare blood type. "The same blood type I have." Patricia nodded. "You could have saved him too if we'd known to ask." David absorbed this. His father had nearly died, and David might have been the only person who could help. But Richard hadn't called him, hadn't even considered him a possibility. So he has 2 daughters he never knew about, and they stepped up to save him. Yes, while the son he did know about was left out of the equation entirely. Patricia's face showed sympathy. "David, he didn't exclude you deliberately. The hospital database search focused on local donors first. You're in Baltimore, they're in Charlotte. Geographic proximity made them the first option." David stood up and walked to the window overlooking the hospital parking garage. Normal people coming and going, visiting sick relatives, dealing with ordinary family dramas. What are they like? Strong, intelligent. Maya's studying nursing, planning to be a nurse practitioner. Grace is in nursing school too, but she's more interested in community health work. They grew up poor, worked their way through school. Everything David had been raised with handed to him. Everything his sisters had earned for themselves. "Do they know about me?" "Yes." Richard told them yesterday. David turned from the window. "What do they think about having a brother they never knew existed?" "They want to meet you." The words hung in the air between them. David felt the same mix of curiosity and resentment he'd carried his whole life regarding Richard's family. Now that family had doubled in size and complexity. "Where are they now?" "Atlanta, at the hospital with Richard. And Richard wants me to come?" Patricia nodded. "He's hoping all 3 of his children can finally meet. He's hoping you might be able to help each other navigate this situation." David laughed without humor. Navigate what situation? Suddenly becoming a family after years of careful distance. David, he's changed. Nearly dying, finding out about Grace and Maya. It's changed something fundamental in him. People don't change, Patricia. They just get better at hiding who they really are. The words sounded familiar. David wondered if his sisters had said something similar. His pager buzzed with an emergency call. Another child needing surgery, another life hanging in the balance. "I have to go," David said. "Emergency surgery." "David, wait." Patricia caught his arm. "Will you at least think about coming to Atlanta? Meeting them?" David studied Patricia's face. She genuinely cared about Richard, had worked for him for 12 years. If she believed he'd changed, maybe, "I'll think about it." 6 hours later, David sat in his small apartment near the hospital, staring at photos Patricia had left behind. Grace and Maya at their nursing school graduation. Grace volunteering at a children's hospital. Maya teaching CPR at a community center. They looked like him. Same stubborn jaw. Same intelligent eyes. Same serious expression when concentrating. His phone rang. An unknown number with a Charlotte area code. Dr. Collins? This is Grace Carter. David's heart hammered against his ribs. Grace! I hope it's okay that I called. Patricia gave me your number. Yes, it's okay. Grace's voice was soft, musical. I wanted you to know that Maya and I understand if you don't want to meet us. This whole situation is complicated and painful. David was quiet for a moment. What was it like, growing up without him? Hard sometimes. Wondering about the other half of our genetics. Wondering if we had siblings somewhere. But Mama, our mother raised us to be strong. Do you hate him? Grace considered the question carefully. I did. For a long time, I hated the idea of him. But meeting him, seeing how much he regrets his choices, I think I feel more sorry for him than angry. Sorry for him. He missed everything, David. First steps, bedtime stories, Christmas mornings, graduation days. He chose money and reputation over love, and now he realizes what that cost him. David thought about his own relationship with Richard. Polite distance maintained by scheduled lunches and carefully neutral conversations. What about Maya? How does she feel? Grace's laugh held affection and exasperation. Maya's angrier. She's always been my protector, and she sees Richard as a threat to the family we built without him. Is she right? Maybe. But David, we saved his life. Our blood is literally keeping him alive right now. That has to mean something. David stared at the photos of his sisters. Young women who'd grown up poor but strong, who'd chosen medical careers to help people, who'd given their blood to save a man who'd abandoned them. I'll come to Atlanta, he said suddenly. Tomorrow. I can get coverage for my shifts. Grace's relief was audible. Really, I want to meet my sisters. After hanging up, David stared at his reflection in the dark window. Tomorrow he would meet the siblings he'd never known existed. Tomorrow he would face the father who'd shaped his life through absence rather than presence. Tomorrow the Collins family would be complete for the first time. Have you ever discovered that everything you thought you knew about your family was only part of the story? That the missing pieces were people who could change your entire understanding of yourself? David packed a small bag, called in favors to cover his hospital shifts, and prepared to drive south toward a family reunion 25 years in the making. 3 children. 3 different relationships with the same complicated man. One chance to figure out if blood really was thicker than the pain that had kept them apart. 3 generations of abandonment collided in a hospital room where miracles and mistakes lay tangled like 4 tubes, where the Collins family finally became real. The morning sun streamed through Richard's hospital room as David Collins knocked on the door he'd never expected to approach as a brother rather than a reluctant son. Come in, Richard's voice called. David entered to find his father sitting in a chair by the window, looking healthier than he had in months. Beside him stood 2 young women who shared David's eyes, his stubborn jawline, his careful way of holding themselves when meeting strangers. David. Richard's voice broke slightly on his son's name. Thank you for coming. David nodded, then turned to his sisters. 25 years of being an only child ended in this moment. Grace. Maya. He spoke their names like he was testing how they sounded. Grace stepped forward first, her smile warm but cautious. David, it's really good to meet you. Maya hung back, studying him with the same analytical intensity David used when evaluating patients. You look like us, she said finally. David laughed nervously. Patricia, show me your photos. I thought the same thing. The room fell into awkward silence. For people who shared genetics but not history, trying to figure out how to begin building relationships from scratch. Lillian entered the room, carrying coffee and wearing a nervous smile. David recognized her immediately from old photographs he'd found in Richard's study years ago. The woman his father had loved and lost before David was born. Mrs. Carter, David said, standing to shake her hand. Lillian, please. And you must be David. She studied his face with motherly concern. You look tired. I drove through the night. Couldn't sleep anyway. Grace gestured to an empty chair. Seat. We have a lot to catch up on. As David settled beside his sisters, he felt the strangeness of the moment. This was what family gatherings were supposed to look like: siblings talking, parents watching, multiple generations in one room. But everything about it felt fragile, like a house of cards built on good intentions. "Tell us about medical school," Grace said, breaking the silence. "Patricia says you want to be a pediatric surgeon." David nodded. "Children's hearts. It's challenging work, but rewarding when you can fix something that seemed unfixable." Maya studied him with professional interest. "Maya and I are both in nursing. Different focuses, but we understand the medical world." "What drew you to medicine?" David asked. Grace and Maya exchanged glances, a lifetime of unspoken communication passing between them. "We wanted to help people who couldn't help themselves," Grace said softly. "People like us, growing up." David absorbed this. His path to medicine had been paved with privilege. The best schools, unlimited resources, connections that opened doors. His sisters had chosen the same field despite obstacles he'd never faced. "Different roads, same destination," he said. Something like that. Maya's voice remained cautious. Richard watched the interaction with barely contained emotion. His 3 children, finally in the same room. The family he'd never thought he'd have, built from pieces of his past mistakes. "David," Richard said quietly, "I owe you an apology too." David turned to face his father. "For what?" "For keeping you at arm's length. For treating you like an obligation instead of a son. For making you feel like you had to earn my attention instead of just giving it freely." The words hit David harder than he'd expected. Years of carefully maintained distance, of professional politeness, of feeling like he was auditioning for a role in his own father's life. "I thought that was how you wanted it," David said. "I thought it was safer, less complicated. I was wrong." Blake appeared in the doorway, hesitant to interrupt the family moment. "Sorry, but the doctors want to do Richard's afternoon checkup." As medical staff entered to examine Richard, the siblings found themselves in the hallway together for the first time without adult supervision. "This is weird," Maya said bluntly. David laughed. "That's one word for it." Grace studied both her brothers. The older one who'd grown up privileged but distant, the younger one who'd learned to protect herself and others from disappointment. "We don't have to pretend this is normal," she said. "It's not normal, but maybe that's okay." "What do you mean?" David asked. "Maybe we can figure out our own way to be siblings, without trying to make up for lost time or pretending we grew up together." Maya considered this. Like starting fresh instead of trying to fix something that was never whole to begin with. David nodded slowly. "I'd like that. I've spent my whole life being the only child of a man who didn't know how to be a father. Now I find out I have sisters who understand what that feels like." "We understand abandonment," Maya corrected. "You got financial support and occasional contact. We got nothing." David absorbed the distinction. "You're right. I am sorry." Maya softened slightly. "I'm not trying to make you feel guilty. I just want us to be honest about our different experiences." "Honesty sounds good," David said. Grace checked her phone. "Blake's been showing me around the company offices. The foundation does incredible work. Medical clinics in underserved areas, scholarship programs for nursing students. We could really make a difference." David caught the "we" in her statement. "You're thinking about staying in Atlanta?" Grace looked at Maya. "We're thinking about it. Richard offered us positions in the company, the foundation, a chance to help people on a larger scale." "And you?" David asked Maya. Maya was quiet for a moment. "I'm thinking about what it would cost us. This world, this family, it comes with complications we never had to deal with before." "Such as?" Maya glanced toward Blake, who was talking with Patricia down the hall. "Such as people with their own agendas. People who see us as opportunities or threats instead of just people." David followed her gaze. "You don't trust Blake?" "I don't trust anyone who benefits from our decisions. Blake's been groomed to eventually take over parts of the company. If Grace and I become family, really become family, that changes his position." David studied Blake with new interest. "You think he's manipulating Grace?" "I think he's smart enough to recognize an opportunity when he sees one. And Grace is beautiful, kind, and about to inherit billions. That's a pretty attractive package." Grace rejoined them, catching the tail End of the conversation. Are you two talking about me? About Blake, Maya said honestly. Grace's face flushed. Maya thinks he's only interested in me because of Richard's money. David looked between his sisters. What do you think? I think he's kind, intelligent, and he makes me laugh. I think maybe Maya's so used to protecting me that she can't imagine someone might actually care about me for who I am. Maya's face showed hurt. Grace, that's not, isn't it? You've spent our whole lives assuming the worst about people before they have a chance to prove themselves. David recognized the dynamic. The protector and the protected. The cynic and the optimist. He'd seen it in families he'd treated, siblings who developed opposing responses to the same trauma. Maybe you're both right, he said carefully. Maybe Blake cares about Grace genuinely, but maybe the money and family connection make her more attractive. Most relationships have multiple motivations. Grace and Maya stared at him in surprise. That's very diplomatic, Maya said. I'm used to dealing with families in crisis. Usually, everyone's partially right and partially wrong. Richard emerged from his room looking tired but pleased with his test results. The siblings gathered around him instinctively, their new family formation still awkward but growing more natural. The doctors say I can go home tomorrow, Richard announced. I was hoping all of you might consider staying in Atlanta for a few more days. Give us time to figure out what comes next. David checked his phone. I can stay until the weekend. After that, I have surgery scheduled. Grace nodded immediately. We'll stay. Maya hesitated. For a few days. But Grace and I need to get back to school eventually. Of course, Richard said. I'm not asking you to abandon your lives. I'm just asking for a chance to be part of them. As they left the hospital together, David felt the strangeness of walking with siblings for the first time. People who shared his genetics, but not his history. People who might become real family, given time and effort and forgiveness. The question was whether Richard Collins, the man who'd spent a lifetime avoiding emotional complications, could learn to be the father his 3 children needed him to be. Or whether his children could learn to trust a man who'd given them every reason to walk away. Time would tell. But for now, they were walking in the same direction. That had to count for something. 6 months later, the Collins family had learned that building relationships was like surgery. It required steady hands, careful planning, and the faith that healing was possible even when scars remained. The morning light filtered through the floor-to-ceiling windows of Grace's new apartment in Atlanta's Midtown district. She stood on her balcony, watching the city wake up below, and marveled at how much her life had changed since that first desperate phone call about a dying billionaire who shared her blood. Maya emerged from the kitchen carrying coffee, her hair pulled back for another day at the Grady Hospital emergency room, where she'd taken a position after finishing her nursing degree. You're thinking too hard again, Maya observed, handing Grace a mug. Grace accepted the coffee gratefully. Just processing. 6 months ago, we'd never heard of Richard Collins. Now we're living in Atlanta, working in his company's medical programs, and actually starting to feel like family. Maya joined her at the balcony railing. Some days it still feels surreal. The sisters had moved to Atlanta 2 months ago, after Richard's full recovery and weeks of careful family negotiations. Grace worked with the Collins Foundation's community health initiatives. Maya split her time between the hospital and developing new emergency medical training programs for underserved communities. Any regrets? Grace asked. Maya considered the question seriously. About moving here? No. About trusting Richard? The jury's still out. Grace laughed. He's trying, Maya. The weekly family dinners, the way he includes us in major decisions, even learning to text instead of having Patricia call us. He's really trying. I know. It's just. Maya struggled for words. I spent 23 years building walls to protect us. It's hard to tear them down overnight. Good morning, sisters. They turned to see David climbing over the balcony divider from his adjacent apartment. The arrangement had been Richard's idea. Siblings living close enough to build relationships, but independent enough to maintain their own lives. David, use the door like a normal person. Grace scolded, but she was smiling. Where's the fun in that? David settled into a chair on their balcony. Besides, I bring news. Good news or bad news? Maya asked. Good news. The pediatric wing expansion got final approval. We'll be able to treat twice as many children with state-of-the-art equipment. Grace clapped her hands together. That's wonderful. The pediatric expansion had been David's project, funded by the Collins Foundation, but designed by someone who understood children's medical needs from inside. It represented the kind of work all three siblings had dreamed of doing, using their skills and resources to help people who needed it most. Maya's phone buzzed with a text message. She glanced at it and rolled her eyes. Blake, Grace guessed, asking if you want to go to some charity gala next weekend. Grace blushed. He's persistent. He's smitten, David corrected. And frankly, I don't blame him. You two are good together. Maya shot him a look. Don't encourage her. Why not? Grace is smart enough to make her own decisions about relationships. Blake comes with complications. The company, the family dynamics, the social expectations. Blake comes with Blake, Grace interrupted firmly. And I happen to like him. A lot. Maya studied her sister's face. Over the past 6 months, Grace had grown more confident, more assertive. The shy nursing student had blossomed into a young woman comfortable wielding both medical knowledge and Colin's family influence. Just promise me you'll be careful, Maya said. I promise. But Maya, you have to promise me something too. What? Promise me you'll give Marcus a real chance. Maya's face flushed. Marcus had stayed in Atlanta after the initial crisis, taking a position with Colin's Industries Security Division. He'd been patient, consistent, and gradually wearing down Maya's defenses with quiet kindness and respectful persistence. Marcus is different, Maya said defensively. Exactly. He's not like the men you've spent your whole life protecting me from. He's genuine, he cares about you, and he doesn't want anything from you except you. David watched this exchange with interest. His sister's romantic lives were still a mystery to him, but he was learning their patterns, their fears, their hopes. Speaking of relationships, David said carefully, Richard asked me to talk to you both about Thanksgiving. What about it? Grace asked. He wants to do a real family Thanksgiving. All of us, including Lillian, at his house. Maya and Grace exchanged glances. Richard's house was a mansion in Buckhead, the kind of place they'd only seen in movies. The idea of gathering there for a holiday felt both wonderful and intimidating. What did you tell him? Maya asked. I told him I'd ask you. But Maya, he's really trying. And honestly, I think he needs this as much as we do. Grace nodded slowly. I think it's a good idea. Maya was quiet for a long moment. We'll be weird. All of us pretending to be a normal family. Probably, David admitted. But we've gotten good at navigating weird. Their phones buzzed simultaneously with a group text from Richard. Family meeting at the office this afternoon. Important announcement. The siblings looked at each other with curiosity and mild concern. Think he's sick again? Grace worried. I don't think so, David said. He's been healthier than ever since the transfusion. Whatever this is, it's something else. That afternoon, they gathered in Richard's office, the same room where they'd first met as a family 6 months ago. Richard sat behind his desk, looking nervous in a way they'd never seen before. Patricia stood beside him with an envelope in her hands. Thank you all for coming, Richard began. I have an announcement that will affect all of us. Maya tensed, ready for bad news. I'm stepping down as CEO of Collins Industries. The silence that followed was deafening. Blake, who had joined them for the meeting, spoke first. Richard, are you sure about this? I'm certain. I've spent 30 years building this company. Now I want to spend whatever years I have left building this family. Richard stood and walked to the window overlooking Atlanta's skyline. I'm not retiring completely. I'll remain chairman of the board, and I'll still oversee the foundation's work. But the day-to-day operations of the company will be handled by others. Others? David asked. Richard turned to face his 3 children. I'm hoping the others will be you. All of you. Grace gasped. Maya went rigid. David stared at his father in shock. I know you're young. I know you have your own careers and dreams. But you're Collins heirs, and you understand what this company could be better than anyone else. Patricia opened the envelope and pulled out legal documents. These papers formalize your positions in the company structure, she explained. Grace would oversee the foundation and community outreach programs. Maya would develop medical and emergency response initiatives. David would consult on healthcare investments and philanthropic medical projects. You want us to run the company? Maya asked in disbelief. I want us to run it together. As a family. The proposal hung in the air between them. The chance to reshape a billion-dollar empire according to their values. The opportunity to help people on a massive scale. The responsibility of managing an enterprise that employed thousands. I need time to think about this, David said. Of course. All of you take whatever time you need. As they left the office, the siblings found themselves once again processing life-changing information together. He's serious, Grace said in wonder. He's crazy, Maya added. Maybe both, David concluded. That evening, they sat on Grace and Maya's balcony, watching the sunset paint the Atlanta skyline in shades of gold and pink. What are we going to do? Grace asked. Maya was quiet for a long moment. 6 months ago, I would have said no immediately. Too much risk, too much trust required. And now I think about all the good we could do. Medical clinics in communities like the one we grew up in. Scholarship programs for students who can't afford nursing school. Emergency response training that could save lives. David nodded. The pediatric expansion is just the beginning. With Collins Industries' resources, we could revolutionize children's healthcare access. Grace smiled at her brothers. So, we're actually considering this? I think we are, David said. Maya laughed, surprising herself. Mama's going to think we've lost our minds. Maybe we have, Grace said, but maybe that's okay. They sat in comfortable silence as the city lights began to twinkle below them. 3 siblings who'd found each other through tragedy and chosen to build something beautiful from broken pieces. Their father had given them life through his DNA and nearly taken it away through his abandonment. But their blood had saved him, and his desire for redemption might save them all. The Collins family wasn't perfect. They might never be normal, but they were real, and they were choosing each other every day. Have you ever discovered that the family you're born with isn't the only family you can have? That sometimes the people who hurt you the most can also give you the greatest gifts? As stars appeared in the darkening sky above Atlanta, 3 young people prepared to inherit an empire built by the father they'd learned to forgive. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new opportunities, and new chances to prove that blood really could run deeper than pride. Tonight, they were simply siblings, watching the world light up below them, grateful for second chances and the mysterious ways that broken things could heal. The end. Thank you for following this journey. Blood truly does run deeper than pride, and sometimes the family we need is the one we choose to build from the pieces we're given. Keep believing in redemption, in forgiveness, and in the power of love to heal even the deepest wounds.